Hi, welcome to my video on the motion of objects in the air and particle on a line. This is review number 1 on videos 1 to 8, and there's also a second review that I'm doing on the other videos, probably I think it's 9 to 12, because it would have been too long of a video to do. And this video, treated as a quiz, as all reviews are, is marked at a 33, so you give yourself a mark for each question, and then you total up the page, total of all the pages after that, and put it over 33 and figure out your percent by dividing 33 into your numerator. Get a decimal, move it 2 places to the right. Here we go, let's do the review. Review 1. H of t equals negative 5t squared plus 40t plus 60 represents the height in meters of an object in the air at time t in seconds, and t is greater than or equal to 0. A, find the average height from 1 to 3 seconds. Well, we have a height, so height is ht, so let's work it out for 1 second. So sub 1 in. So I'm subbing 1 into the equation, and we get 1 squared is 1, we get a negative 5, 40 times 1 is 40, plus 60, so that gives us 95 meters. So we have the h of 3 seconds, so we'll sub in 3 seconds, and just to mention, the average height is the difference in the height over the difference in time. So, just mention that. It's height over time. So it's 3 squared is 9, negative 45. 3 times 40 is 120, plus 60. So that adds up to altogether 135. So the average height is the average height, I'll call h, is it's h2 minus h1 all over t2 minus t1. Right here we have 1 second, we have 95 meters, and here we have 3 gives us 135. So if we call this T1 H1, T2 H2, sub that in, H2 is 135, and H1, H2 is 135, H1 is 95, T2 is 3, T1 is 1, and that works out to be, when you calculate that, we have 40 over 2, which is 20. So the average change in height is, the height is changing. The height has changed from 20 meters in that interval, change in height, the average. And that's, the average only means that it's, again, it's the difference in the height over difference in the time. Now B, V of 2, so the V of 2, V is velocity, so the V of 2 is the same as the S prime of 2, because the derivative of the position curve of height, so that's, I got an S there, this would be H, the H of T is height, so the derivative of the height is the velocity, so that derivative is, we have to figure out what the derivative is, so the h prime of t, so the derivative here is negative 5 times 2 is negative 10 t, derivative of 40t is 40, derivative of a constant is 0, so that means we're subbing in 2 in the place of t to get the velocity, so negative 20 plus 40 is 20, and the velocity is meters per second. So the answer is 20 meters per second. And what I forgot to do was mark. So 4 marks is 1 mark for 95, 1 mark for 135, and 1 mark for writing that down as average, and 4 marks altogether. 2 marks here, 1 for the derivative and 1 for 20 meters per second. And acceleration, A is acceleration. Acceleration is the derivative of the velocity, which is the double derivative of the position. So again, the double derivative, h double prime of t. So it's the derivative of prime, h prime. So the derivative of 10t, negative 10t is negative 10. Derivative of 40 is 0. So we get negative 10. So at 5 seconds, because this is a constant, it's not going to change. So we could just get a negative 10 no matter what time you put in here. The acceleration is a minus 10 meters per second squared. And if you get a minus 10, give yourself a mark when you do the derivative. And if you write the center down, you get another mark. So 2 altogether. So total page and the total out of 8. Let's continue. Find the maximum height of an object if the h of t equals 16t squared plus 64t plus 100 and t is greater than 0. H is the height in feet and t is the time in seconds. So we want to find the maximum height. So the maximum height is when your slope of the tangent is 0, and the slope of the tangent is 0 is when you have h prime of t equal to 0. So that means you have h prime of t, do the derivative, we get negative 16 times 2 is negative 32t. Derivative of 64t is 64. Derivative of a constant is 0. So that means we have a negative 32t plus 64 equals 0. That's the slope of the tangent is 0. That will give you its maximum height. Again, is maximum because we have a negative here. A negative means that it's opening downward. So it starts at 100 and goes up in the air and then comes down. So the peak point, maximum is the peak point. So that's negative 32t equals negative 64. Divide by negative 32 and we get 2. So it's 2 seconds it reaches maximum height. And what is the maximum height? Well, the maximum height is, put 2 in this formula here. So the h of 2 equals negative 16, 2 squared plus 64t plus 100. And that gives us 4 times negative 16, negative 64. 64 times 2 is 128 plus 100. And that gives us 64 plus 100, 164. So the maximum height is 164. And if you did your derivative correctly, you get a mark. If you have 2, if you said your derivative is equal to 0, you get a mark. And we get 2 on the equation. Solving it for t, you get a mark. And we get 164, we get another 4 marks altogether. B, if the velocity is a negative 64 meters per second, find the time in its direction. Well, we already know its direction because its velocity is negative, which means it's going, velocity is negative, is going down like a slope. So it's going downward, but let's find the time. So the velocity, the v of t, is 164, but the v of t is the derivative of the height. So that means that the h, the derivative of the, I put an x there, the derivative of the h of t, and we have the derivative worked out up right here. So that's the h prime of t is negative 32t plus 64. And what we have is that if the velocity is equal to that, that means that a negative 32t plus 64 is equal to negative 64. The derivative is velocity. We did the derivative, and we know the velocity, so we make them equal. So negative 32t equals negative 64 minus 64. Negative 32t is a negative 128. Divide by negative 32 and I get 4. So it has this velocity at 4 seconds. And again, because it's negative, the Vt is negative. So therefore it's going down. Again, we have a slope. And if you have this equation here, you get 1 mark. If you have 4, you get a mark, and if it says going down because it's negative, you get a mark. 3 marks altogether, so you get a total of 7 for that page. Hopefully everything is going well, and you understand the unit and motion of an object in the air or particle on a line. Number 3, the motion of a particle on a straight line is s of t equals t squared minus 10t minus 6. And the s of t is the position, and where is in meters, and the time is greater or equal to 0. And we have s in meters is the position from 0, and t is the time in seconds. A, find the initial position, the starting position. So the initial position is when your time is 0. So that means we have the s of 0 equals 0 squared minus 10 times 0 minus 6. 0 minus 0 minus 6. So that's negative 6. And again, the position is negative 6 meters from 0. So if you have, there's 2 marks here. So if you said the position, initial position is at 0, sub 0 in the equation, you got negative 6, 2 marks. B, for t greater than 0, find the time when the particle is at rest. So the particle at rest when the is either its maximum or minimum point, and this is at its minimum point because it's going downward. So therefore, it's when your slope of your tangent is 0, so that means your derivative is equal to 0. So that means we have s prime t is equal to 0. So s prime t, we find the derivative. The derivative of t squared is 2t. Derivative of negative 10t is negative 10. Derivative of negative 6 is 0. So that means that 2t minus 10 is equal to 0. 2t is equal to 10. T is equal to 5. And it's at rest at 5 seconds. So again, if you put 5 in here, you will get the s of t equal to 0. So there's 3 marks there. So if you said if it's at rest when your derivative is equal to 0, you found your derivative, and then you solve that out, you get 5, so there's 3 marks. C, find the time when the particle is moving to the left and to the right. So the particle is moving to the right, so it's moving to the right when s prime t is greater than 0. So that means that s prime t is right here. So that means that if we have s prime t already worked out to be 2t minus 10, so that means that 2t minus 10 is greater than 0. 2t is greater than 10. Divide by 2, t is greater than 5. So it's moving to the right for any time greater than 5. But we also have to solve this equal to 0, so we have to, because the object is going to keep, well, it's on a line, so the object is going to keep on moving forever, so it's not the same as when the parabola position curve it keeps on. If you're on a line and it starts off at -6 and it goes to the right of greater than 5, so it's 5 seconds, it goes out like that, it keeps on going to the right, and that happens forever and ever and ever. And what about to the left? The left, the S prime t is less than 0, so S prime t is equal to 2t minus 10. So that means that 2t minus 10 is less than 0. 2t is less than 10. T is less than 5. But less than 5, we have to remember t, 0 is less than t is less than 5, because the time starts at 0. But we can't have a 0, so it's down to 0, but not 0. Because if it was 0, the object wouldn't be started. It wouldn't be no movement at all. So it's moving to the left between 0 and 5 seconds, and after 5 seconds is moving to the right, and it moves to the right forever, because no matter what time you put in this expression here, the derivative is always positive, so it keeps on moving to the right. And there's 6 marks here, so if you're moving to the right, if you get that, if you solve this out, and you said it was greater than 0, there's your derivative, so we wrote that, 3 marks. If it's going to the left, you said less than 0. You wrote that inequality down, you solved it out and got this, and then you made that statement, you got 3 more marks, 6 altogether. So it's 11 for that page. Hopefully everything is going well. Again, don't forget you can pause your video at any time when you see the question. Work out the question first and then come back to it to see if you're right. It's a good way to do it. Now we have again a position, S of t, a particle on a line, moving in a straight line, and it's t cubed minus 12t squared plus 2. And the position is in meters on a line when t is greater than or equal to 0. So the v of 2, v is velocity, so the v of t is equal to the derivative of the position curve. So that means, let's do the derivative of the position curve. So the derivative of t cubed is 3t squared. And negative 12 times 2 is a negative 24t. Derivative of 2 is 0. So at 2 seconds, remember, this is the velocity. This is the derivative. So the v of 2 is the same as f prime of 2. So we plug 2 or sub 2 in place of t. 4 times 3 is 12 minus 48. So that's a negative 36. And velocity is the distance divided by time. So it's negative 36 meters per second. And if you have this equation for the derivative, you're correct. If you sub 2 in and got this right, negative 36, you get another mark, 2 marks altogether. Find the a of 3. So a is velocity, or sorry, a is acceleration. So the acceleration is the derivative of the velocity, or it's the double derivative of the position. So let's go with the double derivative of the position, or we get the derivative of the velocity. It makes no difference. Once you have this and you do a derivative, so it's the derivative here of the derivative of the velocity. And so this, to keep it going there, we do acceleration. Acceleration, A, is the derivative of velocity, the derivative of the double derivative of the position curve. So here it is here. This is the double derivative, or the derivative of the velocity. 3 times 2 is 6, t minus 24. And we want the acceleration, or that's the double prime of 3, which is the velocity of 3, which is the acceleration at 3. So either or, just write all this down. So what we're doing, we're putting 3 in the place of t. Simply put, 18 minus 24. That gives us a negative 6. And that's, the velocity is meters per second. Acceleration is meters per second, so the second squared. And if you have, there's 2 marks here, so if you have the derivative done correctly and you subbed in your 3, you have that as 2 marks. And one more, find the speed at 3 seconds. So the speed is defined as the absolute value of your derivative of your position curve. Or I could say it's the absolute value of your velocity. It could be. It's the absolute value because if your speed, if your velocity is negative, is going down. If your velocity is positive, it's going up. And it makes no difference if it's going up or down. It's the speed is whatever it is, its absolute value is going to be positive. So S prime t is right here. So S prime t is 3t squared minus 24t. So at 3 seconds, S prime of 3 is, put 3 in the place of t, done. 9 times 3 is 27, and that's 72, and 27 subtract 72 is a negative 45. Now, so the speed is the absolute value of S prime, or the velocity, so that's a negative 45. So the absolute value of a negative 45 is 45. So the speed is 45 meters per second. So if you have that done correctly, so if you said the velocity was this, which you already knew, and you had this equation written out, so let's say 1 mark for this equation, 1 mark for getting to 45, and 1 mark for doing the absolute value. There's 3 marks. To make this statement, you get a mark. To work out the derivative at 3, you get negative 45. Do the absolute value, which is positive, you get a mark. So 3 marks altogether, 7 for that page. And that brings us to the end of my video. And if you take each of the pages, and if you did it the way I suggested, and if you total up your sheets, and if you have a mark here, hopefully it's 33 out of 33, which is 100%, or you divide 33 into the numerator, get a decimal, move it 2 places to the right to get your percent. And this is the first review. There's another video coming right after this one, which is on the other videos that's in this unit. And if you like my video, click the like button, click the subscribe button, visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained, just one word. Thank you for viewing my video. Hope the video helped you. Bye-bye.